right. Good morning, everybody. I am just going live on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, got it all set up right here. I wanted to come to you today and talk about how to know when to start going after the goals that you have, the stuff that's in your heart, the things that you feel that you're called to do. And this is really kind of dovetails off of something that was taught and preached by Renee Evans over at the church that I go to. She preached on this last night, and so I kind of wanted to share with you a little bit of that from my perspective. If something is in your heart and you have a desire to, we have so many different roadblocks, reasons that we can come up with why we won't get started to do certain things. Reasons that we will wait until there's the right time to get started. Reasons that we come up with to not set goals, to not dream big, to not come up with ideas. For example, sometimes we might be afraid that we're either going to fail, we're afraid that we're not going to do it right, we're afraid that we're going to offend others around us, whatever that may be. Or it's just that we just don't want to dream too big, and we're afraid that failing, if we set our sights too high, it's that old statement of, don't get your hopes up. Don't get your hopes up is a lie and a scam that keeps people held back. It's honestly one of the biggest scams that I've seen in the world today, is that concept of don't get your hopes up. The only way to accomplish what you're called to do or what is in your heart, and you may ask also, how do you know what you're called to do? This was really good, is when you have peace about it, and it's in your heart and there's peace and it's in alignment, those two things, to where it's not like, oh, there's a conflict there. What you feel called to do is what it comes out of you, it births out of you, meaning you can't hold it back. Stuff like this Facebook Live video right here is something that I'm called to do, because I can't hold it back. I can't stop myself from going live on Instagram, Facebook, Periscope, and talking about this stuff with people, sharing and inspiring. That's how I know that that's something that I'm called to do. Whether somebody else believes for us that that is what we're called to do, sometimes people will try to influence for their own gain what they think that we're supposed to do. But what we know inside of us, there's context to that as to what we're called to do. And so how do you know when to start what you're called to do? You start right away, and you start now. You start, and what does starting look like? Starting looks like writing the goals down. Writing those visions, those goals, those God ideas on paper, or typing them up or putting them in your phone and setting what is the first actionable step. Every single journey or goal has a first actionable step for you to take. Start at that first actionable step and then move forward from that point. Okay? So that's how you start doing what you're called to do. You just start making that phone call. The example the lady gave last night is she saw something on Etsy. She had this idea and this goal that she wanted to do. And it wasn't this major calling, but she really wanted to have fun creating clothing and selling it on Etsy. She came up with a million reasons why maybe that wasn't the best idea, but then she decided to just go and do it and start. And who cares if she messed up, whatever. That's the thing. Who cares? What's the worst that could happen? And think about that. What is the worst that could happen? Don't focus on that. Focus on what is the best that can happen, guys. That's the thing. If we focus so often on what is the worst that can happen to us, it is like it's like spraying water on a fire. You have a fire inside of you of what you're called to do, what comes out of you. It's like this little ember that can start a forest fire. And when you put water on it, it quenches it. And don't keep your hopes up. And what's the worst that can happen is the water that quenches that. But that fire that's inside of you will spread like a wildfire and go into all the innermost places to where you're called to do. So how do you know when to start and where to start in your calling, and you have a goal and a vision? You lay down actionable steps. 1 to 2 things that have to be done before you can get started. And that actually, doing that action is actually the first step of then accomplishing and going out there and setting those goals and doing them. Then from there, once you do those 1 to 2 steps, you lay down what's the next 1 to 2 steps. And then what's the next 1 to 2 steps? And you stepping stone it. You don't build the whole goal, the whole vision, the whole plan, the whole calling, and you don't walk it out from just day one in, well, now I'm no, nothing is accomplished that way. But for some reason in our minds, we think that we have this vision and now we need to have the full capacity to do it from day one. Part of accomplishing a goal is, what are some of the things that we need to learn and grow in? Who are some of the connections we need to make? What are some of the choices we need to make? That's another one too. So often we will come up with roadblocks of why we can't go after our goals and visions. And there's internal choices we need to make of, am I prioritizing A over B that is preventing me from doing that goal? And you have to look at, is this calling that I'm called to do greater than that thing that I'm prioritizing? And you just have to go after it. So here's how I want to leave this right now. How do you start going after what you're called to do, what your calling is? How do you start? You write it down. You write down what the big vision is, as Jim Collins says in Good to Great, which is a business book. What's your big, hairy, audacious goal? And then from there, you start to write down actionable steps. Let me break this down in an extreme way. Let's say that you had a vision or a goal to make a new automobile. Okay? That's a big goal. I mean, there's not very many people that have done that. How would you start with that? What is the very first step? You'd have to make connections with different people in different places of manufacturing and development and designing, and those are the first steps. So how do you go about building those connections? And you extrapolate backwards from there. That's how you start. And then you write those things down. And sometimes the first thing when we write down might have some first things that we have to then back up from. That's okay. That's part of accomplishing what you're called to do. But the first step is write it down and then do those first things. Whether those first things accomplish moving you forward or give you more background information as to how to accomplish it, that really doesn't matter. But at least you started with the first step. Another quote is, you can't eat a whole elephant with one bite. I wouldn't want to eat an elephant anyways, but that that phrase and that statement is true. You can't eat a whole elephant with one bite. You can't accomplish what you're called to do with one bite, but you can with multiple bites. And you build those multiple bites. You have to start with the first bite. You have to start. You have to start doing something. If you have excuses and reasons that are holding you back, it's usually based around some sort of a lie that you're believing that is telling you, I can't do this. I want you to realize this. Anything that is in you, a calling, you can do. You can do it. There is nothing that is impossible. Nothing is impossible. And somebody might say, well, we can't travel at the speed of light. That's impossible. Right now, it is. We can't just go buy a rocket ship and fly to the moon. Right now, that's the case. Those are really crazy, big, huge. Yet there's people right now that was their goal, and they're building rocket ships. Nothing. You have to start to change your thinking into realizing that nothing is impossible to accomplish. If you have a goal, start with the first step and go after it and start doing it. Start laying your plans down, write them down, and then go after the first step. Get the background information you need. Write it down. But start somewhere. You just have to start. Stop waiting and get started. That's the biggest thing. Whatever that goal is, whether it is building rocket ships or building a car, or you just want to make a better life for your family, or you just want to, have a better marriage. That's a goal right there. What are those first steps? What are some things you need to learn, accomplish, write them down, and then go after them and do the steps. Goals are worthless if you don't do the first step of the goal. And so I just want to encourage you right now, whatever's kind of in you that you feel like, I need to go do this, I need to do this thing. And there's nothing silly, any sort of silly goals, really. Like I need to I have a goal to create a video game and movies and stuff like that. Those might seem like silly goals to some people, but they're not, because those are what is inside of me. So what are those first steps? I've been learning programming. I've been learning computer programming. I've studied filmmaking since I was younger. Now from there, I need resources and money to have a budget to do that type of thing. So now, how do I get that? How do I accomplish that? If there's a goal in your life and you feel like you're called to do something, it's not there by accident. It's not inside of you by accident. And the only people that fail are those that never go after to do the things that they're supposed to and are called to do. If you play, and there was a quote from J.K. Rowling, quote, what is it? Some failure in life is inevitable. It's impossible to live without failing in something. Unless you live so cautiously that you might as well have not lived at all. In which case, you fail by default. And I thought that was just so powerful right there, summing up the fact that if we play life too safe and are too afraid of failure, we might as well have failed just by default because we never did anything. And so I just want to encourage you right now, whatever goal you have, whatever that is, and if this has encouraged you or something, share this video. Let me know in the comments how this has encouraged you. Write down your goals. Start with step 1 and go after them. Start today. Don't wait and get started. All right, have a good one, everybody.